I knew something was wrong the moment I stepped into the conference room. Ethan didn't bother to lift his eyes from his laptop. He just waved at the chair like I was some intern walking in for instructions. The blinds were half closed, letting in that dull gray light from the skyline. And across the table sat Sarah, leaning back with her arms folded, watching me like she already knew exactly how this was about to play out. My name is Clara. I'm 47 years old, and I've spent the last 18 years at Adler Halt, one of the top real estate firms in Chicago. Up until about 3 minutes ago, I was the senior client manager. Ethan finally looked up, his expression flat behind those ridiculous, overpriced glasses. Thanks for coming in, Clara. This won't take long. Clearly, I said as I took a seat. What's going on? He let out a slow breath, acting like the whole thing was a burden for him. We're restructuring. Your position has been impacted. Impacted? I stared at him. I don't understand. It's not personal, he said, sliding a folder across the table before I could even process his words. The firm's evolving. We're moving toward a leaner, tech-forward model. It's time for fresh energy. Fresh energy. I glanced over at Sarah. She didn't react at all, just tilted her head slightly, studying me like she was waiting for my reaction. There was no empathy, no hesitation. She looked like someone watching a scene she'd already rehearsed. Let me get this straight, I said as I opened the folder. 18 years with the company, 50 million in managed accounts, a client retention rate of 92%. And you're telling me I'm being cut? Ethan gave this tight, rehearsed smile. We appreciate everything you've done, Clara. Truly. But this is the direction the firm is taking. I didn't say anything at first. I just stared at him while my mind went into overdrive. I built this department. I trained half the people sitting out there. And now I was being handed a folder and pushed aside like I never mattered. Sarah finally stood up, arms uncrossing as she did. I'll need your badge and your company device before the end of the day, she said, her voice calm and polished, like she'd handled this exact script more than once. I rose from my chair slowly. I wasn't crying. I wasn't begging. Just a dull heat rising in my chest. You'll get them, I said, taking the folder. Right after I clear out my desk. Ethan nodded, already turning back to his laptop as if the meeting was over the second he dismissed me. Sarah didn't move. She watched me the entire time I walked to the door, like she was making sure I didn't break the invisible rules of being fired. I kept my head high. No turning back. No giving them even a glance. I walked down the hallway with the folder under my arm, my hands clenched tight. My ears were buzzing, but my face stayed completely still. I didn't cry. I didn't say a word. I just kept moving. When I stepped into the bullpen, the silence felt heavy. My heels clicked against the floor, and the only other sound was the soft hum of the lights overhead. No one looked up. Everyone stared at their screens, pretending they didn't notice anything. I opened the door to my office, stepped inside, and closed it behind me. I stood there for a moment, staring at the desk I'd worked at for nearly 2 decades. The air in the room felt heavy, almost like it understood what just happened before I did. The first thing I reached for was the framed photo of my son on the day he graduated from high school. That picture had sat beside my monitor for 10 years. I wrapped it carefully in a hoodie I'd kept on the back of my chair and placed it in the box like it was something fragile. Then I packed the rest, one piece at a time. The old nameplate from when I became senior client manager, the stack of thank you cards from clients I'd gone to bat for, my chipped backup coffee mug from the kitchen. Every item I picked up felt heavier than it should, not because of its value, but because of what it represented. These were the pieces of a career they erased in a single meeting. That was when the burn hit behind my eyes. Not sadness, anger. 18 years of loyalty, and Ethan tossed me aside like I was nothing but a number on a spreadsheet. I sat down for a second and looked at the corner of my desk where I kept my client notes. Handwritten, color-coded, triple-checked. No one knew those clients the way I did. I'd built those relationships from the ground up, flown out last minute to solve emergencies, soothed furious investors more times than I could count. None of that could be replaced by fresh energy. Ethan never understood that. He was always chasing some new tech trend or hiring consultants who talked big and delivered nothing. The moment he became managing partner, he decided he was going to drag the firm into some hyper-automated, app-driven version of the future. The clients didn't matter to him, only the numbers did. Everything had to scale, move faster, cost less. Quality be damned. I pushed back on that more than once. I told him real estate was built on relationships, not platforms. He said I was resisting innovation. Looking back, that's when the countdown started, and I didn't realize it soon enough. I finished packing. Just one small box. Almost 20 years of work reduced to something I could hold with one hand. When I walked out, I passed Sarah near the glass conference room. She pretended to be looking at her phone, but when she noticed me, she smiled. And it wasn't a warm smile. It was the kind you give when you're already celebrating the win. "You'll land on your feet," she said. I didn't stop walking. I wasn't planning on falling. Her smile tightened. I kept moving. The elevator ride felt like a drop through empty space. The lobby was quiet, same as always. I stepped out into the cold Chicago air, held the box tight to my chest, and made my way to the parking garage without once looking back. That night, I couldn't sleep. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, replaying how fast everything had unraveled. A little after 2:30 in the morning, my phone lit up. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something told me to answer. "Clara," a voice said. "Ethan." His tone was sharp, strained. "We've got a serious problem. The back end is failing. Systems are timing out. Sites are crashing. Support lines are overwhelmed. No one knows what's causing it." I sat up slowly. "You replaced my infrastructure. You got exactly what you wanted. I need you to come in." "No." Silence. "We have clients losing access. We're bleeding data. If this gets out—" I cut him off. "Maybe you should have listened when I told you those servers couldn't handle the load." He paused, like he didn't know how to talk to me now that I wasn't sitting across a conference table from him. "You built this system," he said. "Exactly," I replied. "And you tore it apart." I hung up before he could say anything else. I sat there in the dark with the glow of my phone still lighting the sheets. He wasn't calling out of respect. He was calling because he had no other choice. I put the phone down and stared at the clock. I wasn't rushing in. Let him sit with it. I didn't sleep at all. I lay on my back, hands folded over my stomach, watching the minutes crawl across the clock like they owed me something. At 4:16 a.m., the phone rang again, this time with Ethan's name on the screen. I let it ring 4 times before picking up. "You've got another crisis?" I said. He didn't waste a second. "We need you here now." "Why isn't Sarah handling it?" His hesitation told me everything. "She's trying, but the systems are going down one after another. The cloud sync is looping, the backups won't trigger, and the client portal's throwing nonstop errors. No one here can get it stable." I sat up, calm as if I'd been expecting this. "Sounds like a mess." He exhaled hard. "We're losing real money here, Clara. If you could just come in, take a look." "Let me stop you," I said, walking into the kitchen. "I warned you every time. That server setup couldn't handle what you tried to force through it. I told you exactly what would happen if you cut the failovers and ditched the load balancing. You chose to ignore me." His voice tightened. "I'm not here to debate what happened. I'm asking if you'll help." "No," I said. "You're not asking. You're expecting." He tried to soften his tone. "You know the system better than anyone," Ethan said. You built it. No one else can fix this. The longer this goes on, that's not my emergency anymore, I replied, grabbing a glass and filling it with water. But you're in luck. I do consulting now. My rate is $12,200 an hour. I'll need a signed contract before I do a single thing. 1,200? He snapped. Clara, be serious. I am, I said, steady as ever. Your firm is about 5 hours away from a class action lawsuit if client data is affected. Honestly, you're getting a deal. He tried a different approach. You still care about the company, about the people. Not enough to work for free. I took a slow sip of water. But please, feel free to hire someone else. And when they need 3 days to figure out what I already know, I hope you enjoy watching the place burn. Let me know how that works out. He didn't speak at first. I could practically hear his jaw locking. I'll have legal draft something, he muttered. Good, I said. Send it when it's ready. I'll come in when it lands in my inbox. Then I hung up. I just stood there for a while, listening to the hum of the refrigerator and the buzz of the overhead light. They had underestimated me for years. I'd sat through meeting after meeting while Ethan cut me off mid-sentence, and Sarah rolled her eyes whenever I explained system dependencies. I watched them chase flashy upgrades while ignoring the solid foundation I built because it didn't look innovative enough for their presentations. And now that foundation was gone, and the whole thing was collapsing around them. I checked the clock. Almost 5. I poured another glass of water, sat on the couch, and waited. I wasn't rushing for anyone. At 6:30, the email came in. A bare-bones contract with a half-hearted apology tucked into the second paragraph. I sent it back with revisions, raised the rate, requested full system access, and added a clause for non-interference. 10 minutes later, I got a one-word reply. Approved. I closed the laptop and finally got up. No hurry. I showered, put on a dark blazer, tied my hair back, and grabbed my old flash drive, the one containing every version of the system I'd ever designed, backed up twice, labeled neatly by hand. Before leaving, I paused in front of the mirror by the door. I didn't see someone defeated. I saw someone they needed more than they would ever admit. By the time I pulled into the garage under the Adler Halt building, the sun was barely up. I sat for a moment, staring at the steel and glass tower that used to feel like home. I didn't feel small anymore. I felt sharp, focused, dangerous. Then I stepped out, locked the car, and walked inside. The lobby was empty. No greetings, no fake smiles, just flickering hallway lights and the sound of frantic voices coming from down the corridor. I took the elevator straight to the 5th floor. The moment the doors opened, I could smell it. That faint, burnt plastic smell you pray never to encounter in a building with a server room. People were scattered everywhere, some on phones, others hunched over laptops. One intern looked like she was about to cry. Screens were frozen, dashboards flashing red. Panic hung in the air. Ethan spotted me before I said a word. He looked awful. Tie undone, sleeves rolled up, sweat gathering at his hairline. Thank God, he muttered, rushing over. Everything's falling apart. We can't get the portal back online. The database is rejecting access. We've tried 5 restores. Nothing is sticking. I walked right past him toward the server room. He followed, still rambling. I told DevOps to patch the memory overflow, but now the load balancer's choking and... Stop talking. He shut up. I opened the server room door and a wave of heat hit me in the face. It felt like stepping into an oven. The machines were whining, fans screaming at full speed. A red light blinked on the main console. CPU temps maxed out. Who authorized running real-time analytics through the primary pipeline? I snapped. Ethan looked completely lost. I thought Sarah said it would optimize. Jesus, Ethan! I crouched, opened the bottom panel, and pulled the logs. Error after error. Memory leaks, processing queues overfilled, CPU spikes everywhere. It wasn't just bad. This was catastrophic. I plugged in my flash drive, scanned the logs, checked the cooling cycles. "You've got maybe 4 hours before these processors fry permanently," I said. "We need to shut it down right now." "That's not an option," he barked. "We're already losing clients by the minute. And you'll lose the entire system if you keep running it like this." He didn't argue. He just stared at me with that same look he always had when he realized I was right and couldn't stand it. I stood up, wiped sweat off my forehead, and turned to a tech standing nearby. 12 hours shutdown, full system reboot, no exceptions. Start with the mainframe, then rotate through the support servers. I'll monitor staging." He nodded immediately and rushed off. "Clara," Ethan said quietly, almost sounding desperate, "if this goes down for that long, we're going to take a massive hit." "Too late," I said. "That hit already happened." He opened his mouth again but said nothing, just dragged a hand through his hair and backed out of the room. I stayed locked in, monitoring temperatures, cycle reports, power usage, every detail. A few minutes later, Sarah walked in. "I can help if you need," she said carefully. I didn't even look at her. "No offense, but if you could handle this, I wouldn't be here." She stiffened, crossed her arms, and leaned against the wall, completely useless. While the system started shutting down, I opened a second terminal and began pulling archived logs, months of ignored warnings, failure alerts Ethan never addressed, configuration changes that should never have been approved but somehow were. All of it time-stamped, all of it pointing to a slow, predictable disaster. I created a new folder, labeled it negligence proof, and sorted everything by category. "That really necessary?" Sarah finally asked. "You mean documentation?" I replied. "Yeah, especially when leadership cuts corners and blames the technology when everything blows up." Her jaw tightened. She didn't respond. I kept working. It was methodical, controlled, like cleaning out rot from something that once had structure. Around 10, Ethan returned with 2 board members behind him. They hovered by the doorway, whispering among themselves. I didn't care. I had a job to finish. I wasn't here to make friends. I was here because this place couldn't function without me, and they were finally starting to realize it. I glanced over my shoulder at the chaos outside the glass walls, then back at the screen. The numbers were stabilizing, temperatures dropping, systems sliding back under control. But I wasn't just fixing the network. I was preparing my next move. The building emptied out sometime after midnight. Even the board members disappeared, leaving behind cold coffee cups and the stale smell of panic. I stayed. The server room was finally quiet, temperatures steady, error lights gone, fans humming in a steady rhythm. Stable, for now. I moved to the backup terminal and dug deeper, past the surface logs, into the diagnostics nobody touches unless they actually understand what they're looking at. That's when I saw it. A pattern. Every major spike in the last 6 months. Same timestamp window, same process ID, the same faulty update sequence overriding my safeguards. The system hadn't just failed. Someone had overridden the protocols. Too many times to be an accident. I pulled up the admin logs, Ethan's credentials, override approvals, no second authentication, no team confirmation. He'd been pushing updates alone on weekends, skipping QA entirely, cutting corners to look fast and innovative, gambling with the infrastructure I built. I didn't react. I just saved everything, compiled the logs, archived them to my flash drive, and labeled them clean. Intentional override. I didn't confront him. Not yet. Instead, I restored everything the way I originally designed it. My cycling protocols ran like muscle memory, clean, efficient, unbroken. Everything he didn't understand when he tore it apart. By 4:30 a.m., the system was running better than it had in months. I leaned back, cracked my neck, and let the silence settle. I was exhausted, but it was the sharp kind, the clarity that comes when you're the only one who knows how deep the hole goes and the only one who can fill it. At 6:10, my phone rang. "Ethan." "It's under control," I said. He sighed. "I know. I saw the reports. Listen, Clara. I owe you an apology." I waited. Nothing. The breath of a man who knew he crossed a line but didn't have the spine to name it. "I want to offer you something," he said. "A position of trust. Full autonomy. High-level input. I'll make sure the board knows your value." He said it like flattery was currency. "I'll think about it," I said. I didn't believe a word. Then my phone buzzed again. "Sarah. Glad we got it back online. I walked the board through our fix this morning, told them how I spotted the root issue in time." I stared at her message. She hadn't written a single line of code, didn't understand half of what I was doing last night. She stood in the corner hugging her clipboard while I rebuilt the infrastructure she helped break. I didn't reply. I just set my phone face down. They were already rewriting the story, but I wasn't playing their game anymore. I was building my own. Ethan's assistant met me in the hallway like I was some visitor, not the person who'd just saved their entire digital spine from snapping. She opened his door with a little smile, expecting gratitude. I walked in without a word. Ethan stood behind his desk, hands gripping the chair back like he'd rehearsed for this moment. "Clara," he said, aiming for casual. "Appreciate you coming." I sat. Didn't bother with small talk. Didn't take off my coat. He slid a folder toward me. "A revised offer. 6-week consulting agreement. Keep the system stable. Train internal staff. 25,000 total. Half up front." I didn't touch it. "That's what you're bringing to the table?" "It's fair," he said. "Market rate for mid-level consulting." I met his eyes. "I'm not mid-level. I'm the only reason your client portal is online and your firm isn't on the front page of Cranes right now." That landed. "Clara, this is a temporary fix," he tried. "We can't allocate a senior package to short-term assistance." "No, you won't allocate it," I said. "Because you still think you're holding the cards." He folded his hands. "We've brought in third-party firms before. We can source someone else. You're not irreplaceable." I smiled. "Then why haven't you?" His jaw tightened. "You want the truth?" I leaned in. "This wasn't a surprise. You ignored warnings. You pushed unauthorized updates. You killed redundancies to save money. You created this crisis. I cleaned it up. And now you want me to play nice while Sarah walks around pretending she solved it." "She didn't say that," he muttered. "She texted it," I corrected. He exhaled hard through his nose. "Clara, I'm trying to find a way to work with you. Let's keep this professional." "Professional?" I let out a laugh. "You fired me without cause, gutted my infrastructure, and shoved a junior into meetings she couldn't handle. Now your entire system is held together by duct tape and prayer. And you're lucky I'm even in this damn chair." He didn't argue, just stared. That glassy, hollow look of a man finally realizing he'd miscalculated. I opened my bag and slid a thick, neatly tabbed folder across his desk. "Here's my offer," I said. 6-month minimum retainer at my full rate, performance bonus tied to system recovery milestones, direct authority over the rebuild and unrestricted access to internal documentation. Sarah stays out of it. So do your outsourced contractors." He skimmed the first page and blinked. "This is triple what we budgeted." "Then triple the budget." "You're pushing it, Clara." "No," I said, calm as steel. "I'm done being pushed." He looked up again. Panic flickered, this time mixed with resentment. "What makes you think we'll agree to this?" I stood, taking my time gathering my things. "Because you know damn well no one else can fix this. Not correctly. not fast enough. You're overestimating your leverage, Ethan, and you're underestimating mine. I paused in the doorway. Clock's ticking. Every day you stall is another client gone. I'm not begging to come back. You're begging to survive. He didn't answer. I left without looking back. By the time I reached my apartment around 10, I was running on fumes. I dropped my bag, kicked off my heels, and let the silence settle. I hadn't eaten all day, but instead of making food, I opened my laptop. I wasn't finished. I updated my consulting draft, added an audit clause, reinforced the liability language. If Ethan signed it, he wasn't wiggling out later. I was shutting the laptop when my inbox pinged. Subject: You should see this. No name, no intro. Just a .zip file and one line. This isn't just about the system. Could have been junk. Could have been malware. But something in my gut tightened. I opened it, and then I stopped breathing. Internal emails, PDFs, transaction logs, a memo titled Projected Infrastructure Stress Points, external sync trial dates from 6 months ago, all signed off by Ethan. But the documents weren't from our firm, Keystone Group. More files, Ethan's NDA, a contractor agreement, correspondence, timelines. He wasn't just ignoring my design protocols, he was feeding Keystone everything, while pushing updates guaranteed to collapse our system. The failures, the layoffs, my termination. It all lined up. This wasn't incompetence, it was a setup. Sabotage. Deliberate. Calculated. Personal. And I was the target. My pulse spiked, but my hands didn't shake. I forwarded everything to my attorney with a single line. Call me first thing. This changes everything. Then I encrypted the files and made 3 backups: cloud, flash drive, off-site. By the time I crawled into bed, I wasn't angry. I was cold, clear, lethal. The next morning, I walked into Adler Halt and asked to see Ethan. His assistant tried to block me. I didn't bother arguing. I just walked past her and pushed open his door. He was mid-call. He waved me off like I was an inconvenience. I dropped a printed stack of the documents onto his desk. He froze. "I'll call you back," he muttered, hanging up slowly. "What is this?" he asked. "Proof," I said, "of what you've been doing behind everyone's back." He scanned the NDA, the emails, the memos. His face lost all color. "I can explain," he said quickly, standing up. "It's not what you think." "Oh, it's exactly what I think." My voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. "You sabotaged your own firm to grease your side deal with Keystone. You tampered with internal systems, ignored critical warnings, and tried to pin the collapse on me." He shook his head. No, you're twisting it. Keystone approached me about a merger. I had to demonstrate the infrastructure was unstable." I snapped. "Well, congratulations. You delivered that part." He stepped toward me, palms out. "Clara, this is business. These conversations happen at that level. It wasn't personal." I let out one dry, razor-thin laugh. "You fed them my work. You gutted the systems I built. You fired me so the sabotage would look like my incompetence, and now you're calling it strategy? Let's not make this bigger than it needs to be," he said. "We can work something out. You have leverage. We both know that. So let's use it the smart way." "You mean help you cover it up?" He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. "I already sent everything to my lawyer," I said. And the mask finally cracked. "And if I don't get everything I'm owed, and then some, I'll send this to the board, the clients, and every publication in Chicago that covers finance." His face twitched. "Clara, this could ruin me." I held his stare. "Good." He didn't move, didn't blink. I turned and walked out, heels cutting across the tile like a metronome counting down his career. This wasn't about getting even anymore. This was about burning down the entire lie. By the time I reached my desk, a message was already waiting. Board wants you in the conference room. 15 minutes. No signature, no explanation. Fine. I walked in with the same folder I'd dropped on Ethan's desk, and a look that told anyone who glanced my way to stand back. The boardroom was full. 7 members, tense, buttoned up, already sensing the shift in the air. Ethan stood at the head of the table, arms crossed too tightly, pretending he still had authority. He wouldn't even look at me. I didn't sit. I opened the folder and laid out the papers like evidence in a trial. "I'm here," I said, "because the person you trusted with your tech strategy has been feeding proprietary system data to Keystone Group." It landed with a thud. "Excuse me?" A board member snapped. "Ethan signed an NDA and private consulting agreement with Keystone months ago. While doing that, he pushed code changes that destabilized our infrastructure, forced a system collapse, and fired the only person who understood the architecture, me, to make it look like incompetence instead of sabotage." "That's not true," Ethan barked. Too loud, too fast. I didn't even look at him. "I have email chains, admin logs, and metadata showing direct file transfers from our servers to Keystone Consultants, all under Ethan's credentials." A board member leaned forward. "We'll need to see those files." "They're in your inbox," I said, tapping the table. "Time-stamped. Verified." Ethan looked like he'd swallowed glass. "This is a hit job. Clara is twisting." "You authorized the updates that killed the firewall," I cut in. "You bypassed DevOps. You pushed destructive load testing without failovers. You removed redundancies to fabricate instability." Another board member turned sharply to him. "Ethan, did you approve these transfers?" He didn't answer. "Ethan," the member repeated. He cleared his throat. "There were exploratory talks, that's all. No formal deal." "Exploratory talks don't come with signed NDAs," I said, dropping the final sheet, a payment confirmation. "Or money moving between accounts. You sold pieces of our tech. Period." Silence. Heavy, sour, undeniable. I stepped forward, hands on the table. "I've held this company together through every disaster you didn't even notice happening, and now I want what I've earned. Not a consulting patch job, not temporary authority." I looked each board member in the eye. "I want full control of the company's IP, every system I built, every module I designed, and a permanent seat on this board." A long pause. "That's a substantial request?" one woman said. "Why should we consider it?" "Because I'm the only one keeping this place from collapsing," I said evenly. "You're hemorrhaging trust. You have no stability. And your managing partner has been caught trading secrets to your competitor. You need a rebuild. I'm the only one who can deliver it." Ethan's voice cracked. "You're trying to destroy me." I looked straight at him. "You did that yourself." But no one was listening to him anymore. A few board members were already scrolling through the files I'd sent. One finally set his phone down. "We need an emergency vote." I sat, crossed my legs, and waited. The vote didn't take long. Ethan was out by noon. No speech. No quiet dignity. Just a disabled keycard and an escort off the floor. The board asked me to stay. They didn't grovel, but the way they looked at me had changed. They finally understood the value they'd almost thrown away. By the end of the day, my demands were signed: full control of infrastructure, a board seat, and a public statement crediting my leadership for the recovery. I didn't celebrate. I worked. First order of business: wiping every trace of Ethan's sloppy code. Then I called 3 people I trusted, 2 from my old team, 1 from a partner firm, and brought them in immediately. I didn't care about titles. I cared about competence. Within a month, we had a working beta. Fast, stable, scalable. Built on the bones of the system I designed years ago. Only now I didn't need permission to do it right. Sarah tried to hang on, dropping vague suggestions during meetings, asking questions she should have known. The board quietly moved her to marketing. She didn't fight it. Word spread fast. Clients who'd pulled back came back. Other firms started asking, who rebuilt Adler Halt? What tech are they using? Who's running the show now? And finally, my name was in those conversations. By fall, I stood at the podium of the Midwest Real Estate Tech Conference, lights bright, crowd full. I wasn't nervous. Not anymore. People ask how I rebuilt a broken system, I said. But it was never broken. It was ignored. Laughter, nods, applause. I walked them through the architecture, the rebuild, the failures that became lessons once someone actually paid attention. When I stepped off the stage, the applause didn't stop. And for the first time in years, I realized this firm never needed Ethan's vision. It needed mine.